What's up? It's Dr. Will James reporting to you. So I'm here. I'm going to break down my discussion. I don't want to call it a debate. It wasn't a debate. There was no mediator. There's no one to fact check. We were having a discussion. We disagreed. We agreed on parts, but I'm going to break it down. Fresh off of it, I couldn't see everything. I was on whatever his stream. But let's break it down. Let's get into it. Let me make this. So let's break this.
But he's turning into AI. I am AI, dude. I am AI. I mean, do you think I'm a real person? Let's see. Is this guy joining up yet? Is this guy with a doctorate joining up, or is he's where is he at, man? Let me actually try to call him on Instagram. Where is he at? Where is this guy? Dr. William Dion James. I'm gonna give him a call on stream. Dion James, where are you, man? It's ringing, guys. Calling him up right now on the spot. Calling him on the spot.
So this is him calling me. I saw his missed calls.
Yeah, he hasn't even seen, by the way, producer, he hasn't even seen the message yet of the link. So maybe that's his issue. He hasn't seen the message yet.
So he's saying I haven't seen the message yet. He is acknowledging I didn't see the message yet when he's calling.
Does he not know he's supposed to be joining up? I mean, maybe his issue is also the fact that he's not beating the stereotypes, man. He's not on time. Dr. Willie.
So that right there, I don't like that he's doing this. I'm not on time. This guy messaged me. He says he comes on at 7. This guy messaged me. We spoke, at 2:00 today. I said 2 p.m. I said, what are the details? Where's the link, etc. If we're going to go on today. I didn't know if we were going on today, tomorrow, when we were going on. He said, we'll get those over to you. I said, okay. That was at 2. He messages me at 6:46 p.m. Remember, it's supposed to start at 7. When he's saying this, the time is, I don't know what, 7:10 or something like that, or whatever. And I'm not paying attention like right at the moment. Like you send me this over at 6:46. We're going to send you something soon. And I said okay to that. They sent it at 7:03. They sent it at 7:03. He calls me at 7:07 and 7:16. So I responded to him at 7:22. So for you, that's just disingenuous. And like you see, this is the stuff I'm talking about. When people know all of the facts, like that's just wrong to do. Like, I don't want to feed any stereotypes, but he's late. And him knowing that his own people, like you could have sent me the link earlier today and said, like, yo, we'll be doing it. We'll do sound check at 6:45, 1:45, and then he would have, then I could see what he's saying if I was late, and he did everything accordingly, but he didn't. He did it wrong on his end, and then he's saying stuff like this. So I don't like this disingenuous stuff.
Dion James, not on time, man. Sorry, guys, for all the people joining in just now. We have a BLM activist who's supposed to be coming up and debating me, but
calling me a BLM activist, knowing I'm not a BLM activist, or without knowing if I am or am not, and then saying that's nowhere on my profile for him to call me a BLM activist. This is the type of stuff. Tell you.
All of a sudden he's gone. Maybe someone sent him clips of me debating or something. Maybe someone spooked him. I don't know, man. I don't. Like, how could you know the exact time you're given? Message me like 30 minutes ago, like, yep, I'm ready to go. And all of a sudden you're a no-show.
You didn't, 30 minutes ago, you hadn't sent me the link. At this time, when he first called 7:07, they had sent me the link 4 minutes ago. So you expect me to be readily by my computer and ready to go when you send the link. Let's see. Let's be completely accurate. 19 minutes after our last communication. Like, come on, man. I got things to do.
Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. Is this the Biden appreciation page? Yep. You've never won a debate I've seen you in? Dude. Name the debate in which this is what a lot of people do. They're like, well, Matt, you lost this debate, like against Amanda Seales or against this other person. I'm like, okay, what argument that I made was just factually untrue? Tell me how it was incoherent. They never can like tell me how I was wrong, because leftists and liberals don't really have a mind. They sort of operate off of emotionalism and feelings. So, yeah. You got fact check on a fact checking debate. You're talking about the same fact checkers where one of them ended up leaving because they were biased, because they were proven to be biased. Are you talking about that?
I did see that debate where it was some white guy who looked like he was just kicking his ass, like he was just getting fact checked, and they were proving that it was correct, and the person had said what the guy was saying, and he was like, "Oh, that person never said that." I don't want to play games. I want to rely on the facts. You're gonna see when I go through things, he's trying to debate. He's trying to straw man and push you away from arguments and stuff like that. I just want to rely on the facts.
Well, leftism is awesome. I'm sorry, that's humorous. Like nowadays, it's just humorous when I hear things like that. It's funny. It's cute. You know, I have to say that, leftist. It's cute when you say leftism is awesome. It's cute. Because I look at Cuba. I look at communist Romania. I look at China under Mao. I look at North Korea. And then you tell me, you know, leftism is awesome. Yeah, I don't think so. Got to consume less sodium. Matt for president? Dude, you don't want to see me become the president. Sherry Boniface says, Matt, you are looking incredible. I love you guys.
Okay, let's skip this.
Peace out, man.
All right. See you, brother. Keep up the good work, man.
100%. See ya. I got to visit you in California again, but we'll work on that. Okay, guys. So he has this camera on, okay? If you guys want to actually see the BLM leftist black supremacist I'm going to be debating, go over on YouTube so you can see him. You'll still be able to hear him on TikTok, but you won't be able to see him. Okay, I'm just making sure you guys know that.
So there he goes. He's trying to get views, so he's calling me a BLM leftist activist. I'm not a leftist. I'm not a BLM supporter.
Okay, he's here. Okay, perfect. We have the audio working perfect, I think. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly fine, sir. What's up? Okay, we're gonna just do a quick test with my producer for just for a second. So just hold on. We're gonna make sure the audio and stuff is working well. People on TikTok, do you guys can you guys hear him? He was just talking, so. Okay, Adam says yes. Okay, people are able to hear him over on TikTok as well. Perfect. Yeah, people are saying yes. Okay, beautiful. That's great. That's great. That's great. All righty. Looking good. Okay, I guess we're good to start, right? TikTok's good. Okay, perfect. Yep, TikTok, people already said that they could hear him. All righty. Commence debate. Let's get into it, man. All right, so, let me bring you over here really quickly so we can sort of see you better. Okay, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly fine. Can you hear me well?
I heard you say you were debating a BLM activist. Who's that?
See, that's the thing, is I started off saying, I don't really know where this guy stands. I saw on your page where you said that you wrote a book called Black Supremacy, and you're like a black activist. Some black activists are BLM supporters, some aren't. But I want you to sort of characterize yourself so I don't strawman you. Tell us what your position is.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm not a BLM activist,
okay,
especially if you're talking about the organization. I think you're talking about the organization.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah, no.
The organization, the movement, the sort of ideology that coincides, you know?
Well, I think Black Lives Matter, but I'm not I'm not a BLM activist or a BLM supporter, because that organization was run by 3 lesbians, and I'm against LGBTQ.
I can agree with you on that. I think the fact that 3 lesbian girls or women, that bought mansions afterwards and that were being condemned by the victims' families, I think that's not a good look at all. And not to mention the fraud that's been taking place with BLM as well. The amount of money that they stole. But let's just talk about this. Like, Black Lives Matter. Yeah, Black Lives Matter. That's a buzzword. I think that like all lives generally matter. I don't have an issue with like I don't think that we should just have to say white lives matter. I think all lives should matter, right? But who do you think really needs to hear that sort of phrase? Is it white? Is it like a white guy from Utah named like let's say Derek?
So right out the gate, he's trying to do the whole black on black crime thing. So this is a waste of time, which is why I'm going to do what I do. He's trying to prove that black people have to worry about being a victim of a crime by a black person, another black person more than someone else. But white people have to worry about being a victim of a crime from someone white other than someone from another race. It's a proximity thing. It's racially based. So it makes no point to ask this question other than something is wrong with you, like self-hating or something like that. Like, because what's the point? When I ask the question, he's going to admit the same thing.
Does he need to hear that Black Lives Matter, or does Little Dirk in Old Block need to hear that Black Lives Matter? Like, who would you say needs to hear it more? Black kids in black neighborhoods or white kids in the suburbs?
Everyone needs to hear it. What does that mean? Everyone needs to hear it.
I'm saying who needs to hear it more though? Like who should that be? Like, I don't think that white people, and this is not even what I think, it's just a fact. White people are not going around killing black people for absolutely no reason. It's not an epidemic. The epidemic in terms of gang violence and gang crime in places like Chicago, especially the south side of Chicago, is obviously intraracial. It's within, the black community. And so I think that telling fellow black young teenagers that Black Lives Matter is very much more important than telling just white people. White people don't need to be reminded of that because they're not causing black deaths on a large scale at all.
So you said all lives matter, right?
Yeah, of course.
So who needs to hear that white lives matter more? Is it the black guy in O Block, Little Dirk in O Block, or is it the white person, Jake in the white neighborhood that needs to hear white lives matter more?
Well, I would say actually both, because a lot of what I've seen from the left, yeah, both. Because
so now he's saying both, just like I did. Both need to hear it. Even though you're, as a white person, you're extremely more likely, significantly more likely to be harmed and, fall victim to a crime by another white person. But he doesn't want to say that.
I've seen from the left a lot is they want to dehumanize white people, that, oh, white people are just colonizers, they're evil. I had a Nigerian guy come up here telling me that white people are like the devil or something. And so I think that, yeah, a lot of people in the black community need to hear that as well. And not to mention, obviously, black on white homicide is far higher than white on black, which is another fact substantiated by the NCVS.
Yeah, so white on white, if you're white, you're more likely to get harmed and killed by someone.
Of course, most crime is intraracial. We agree on that, Doc.
So
most crime is intraracial, but the rates are disproportionate within certain communities. That's kind of the conversation.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about, because I saw in the video that you cited some statistics, and I want to know, where does America get their crime data from? Where do they get the statistics from?
Yeah, there's many different places. The NIBRIS, for example, is one of them. Like local, state governments basically collect data and they give it to the federal government.
And they give it to them based on what?
Well, obviously, based off of many different factors that go into it. It's not just one factor.
Like, is it based off convictions? What is it? Is it based off arrests?
Like, if you're talking about, well, actually, many different things. Yeah, convictions on the local level, arrests on the local level, many different factors. It depends. None of it's not like a uniform sort of thing. But before we get into that, just for a second, I want to know more about where you stand. Your book is titled Black Supremacy. Again, I don't want to mischaracterize you. By the way, if you're watching over on TikTok, guys, you can see him and you can see his face and him talking, right, on the Nuclear Reaction YouTube channel. So look up the Nuclear Reaction over on YouTube, and you can see me and him talking, and you can see his face if you want to see him. Okay. Yeah. So what is your book Black Supremacy about?
Well, it's about black oppression and it's about black accomplishments.
Black oppression. But why title it Black Supremacy?
It's called a hook.
Okay. That's it. There's nothing deeper into it.
So when we just went over how they collect data, he said the NIBR, the National Incident Based Reporting System, they collect their data it says the NIBRS collects data from local, county, state, tribal, and federal law enforcement agencies. Police departments submit detailed information on crimes that become known to them. Unlike the NCVS or the NIBRS, the NIBRS does not measure crimes that were never reported to police. So how is the data collected? When officers document a crime report, participating agencies enter detailed information into their record management systems. So for each criminal incident, the NIBRS collects information on. So this is criminal incidents. This is not based on convictions. This is what I was trying to get him to say. The NIBRS contains much more detail than the older Uniform Crime Report, the UCR summary system, because it records each offense within an incident rather than only the most serious offense. So the UCR reports the most serious offense. The NIBRS reports all every incident that is reported. But again, it's not accurate. So if we're going to be honest, again, if this is what I'm saying, if this was a debate and we were forced to look at the facts and look at how the data is collected, or if there was someone to fact check, they get reports. And this is based off of, again, I said this when I was on Digital Social Hour. Someone can say, I was robbed by someone who was Black. I was robbed and assaulted by someone who was Black. That's the incident report. So then now in the crime report, it's going to say that a robbery was committed by someone who was Black, and an assault was committed by someone who was Black, without any actual factual proof. There's no conviction. There's nothing to confirm that the person is given an accurate testimony or accurate statement about the crime that was committed. It can go based off of the perception of who committed the crime. And I just want him to be honest about this. I don't know if he knows this or not, but he kept talking and he kept trying to move. So we're on his platform, and because I'm an honest person and he's younger, I just let the discussion happen. But I'm going to go back to it, and he's not going to answer the question. I want people to read the book.
Okay. Because I thought because even with a title like that, let's say you're not necessarily advocating for Black supremacy. When you have a title like that, there could be like a deeper meaning. I haven't read the book, so that's why I'm asking you, because it's your book, right? Like whether or not your book has a deeper meaning to it. But Black oppression, okay. Do you feel like you're actively being oppressed in today's society?
Oppression means unfair treatment. So Black people are actively oppressed in America, yes.
How am I oppressed in America? If I were to how would you say that I would probably deal with mistreatment in my everyday life?
I'm talking about systemic oppression. So it's not anecdotal. It's not about individual experiences. It's about on a systemic level. So on a systemic level, education, policing, the judicial system, these are systems that are in fact systemically oppressive to Americans. So for example, when you are sentenced in America, you are far more likely to get more time than a white person who committed the same exact crime. If you compare apples to apples, if we have the same exact, it's called a score sheet. So if you have 2 felonies, I have 2 felonies, you commit armed robbery, I commit an armed robbery. If the perpetrator is white versus the perpetrator is Black, the person who's Black is more likely to get more time, even to compare apples to apples.
I've heard people say that, but there's a lot of confounding variables that it does not account for. I'm glad that you're more specifying that you're talking about systemic racism rather than just like getting discriminated, just generally speaking, right? Speaking of that, does that account for like socioeconomic status and like someone having more money to pay for a better lawyer? So you're saying that both criminal records are identical from the local, state, federal level, and that these people have the same socioeconomic status, same sort of legal representation, right?
Right.
Okay.
So this is known, and studies have been done on this. So like you can just look this up. Like let's look up a source. We could look at anything, but let's see. Let's find a source. So the main thing that's important is the score sheet. Score sheet, crime, and socioeconomic status. So here's a few. A landmark study by Marit Rehavi and Sandra B. Starr examined federal criminal cases from arrest through sentencing. After controlling for factors such as the arrest offense, criminal history, and other case characteristics, they found that Black defendants received sentences about 10% longer than comparable white defendants arrested for the same crimes. The researchers concluded that much of the remaining disparity was explained by prosecutors' charging decisions, especially the more frequent filing of charges carrying mandatory minimum sentences against Black defendants. So that's accounting for variables, the arrest offense, criminal history, and other case characteristics. It's accounting for the nuance where, because we spent a lot of time talking about them working together in this, just for him to agree with me in the end that both of them should have got maybe 10 years, or the guy who got 2 years could have got 10 years. He got 2 in comparison to 26. And the case I'm going to bring up with Judge Sherwood-Bauer, everyone can look it up. He's going to say, well, the guy who his name is Chase, the white guy, versus the Black guy Lloyd, Lamar Lloyd, who wasn't able to get other people convicted. That's why he got 13 times, 24 more years, 26 years compared to 2. Even though they had the same score sheet, committed the same crime, and they both were attempting to cooperate. One was just successful. They both were cooperating. One was just successful with his cooperation, and one wasn't. One was able to get 2 others convicted, and they didn't need the testimony that Lamar Lloyd gave. So he cooperated. He snitched. He worked something out, but they're like, hey, look, we can get other people with or without you. Just so happens. So he focused on that rather than when I brought up a study of 1,800 cases, he's like, oh, we can't look at the nuance. Furthermore, the U.S. Sentencing Commission, the USSC, has repeatedly found racial disparities in federal sentencing after controlling for numerous sentencing factors. So we have a study that followed people from arrest through sentencing, okay, that people can look up. Rehavi, Rehavi, and Sonia B. Starr, Sonja B. Starr, Starr. That's in the Chicago Journals, and then the U.S. Sentencing Commission's, the USSC. It says its 2023 report found that when examining all federal sentences imposed between 2017 and 2021, you have 4 years. Black males receive sentences 13.4% longer than similarly situated white males. When looking only at cases that resulted in imprisonment, the difference was 4.7% longer. The commission noted that that a substantial portion of the overall disparity was associated with differences in the likelihood of receiving probation versus incarceration, although disparities in prison sentence length also remained. All right, it says that the disparities persist when socioeconomic status is also held constant. It's supported by some studies, by some studies, but it is not universal across all sentencing research. Okay, so I just don't like when people play games. He's trying to debate. You see, before I came on, he was saying he's debating. I'm trying to just discuss the facts. You can call it a debate, but it's in a debate, no one really has advantage. It's on his platform. If he were to come on my platform, I would let him speak and let him state the facts and things like that. You see what he's trying to do.
Can you reference the study?
Study?
Yeah.
It's the CRJ. It's criminal justice and judicial review. It's when people get sentenced.
Yeah, but I've read that, and nowhere did it mention all of those different variables that I just brought to you. I've had people bring that up all the time, but they never actually show me all of those different variables accounted for.
You just mentioned socioeconomic status. I'm talking about, so Judge Sherwood-Bauer. Sherwood-Bauer, you can look this specific judge up. This is
one specific judge.
This is he did it over several cases.
How many cases? How many cases?
Several.
How many?
So right now he's saying the number. Later on, I recite the number. I say 1,800. And he then says I have to look through the nuance of each case, because it could be a disparity where maybe someone cooperated and someone didn't and stuff like that. Over 1,800 cases, that sample size. Come on, man. you're just going to try to nitpick it when this guy was kicked off the bench and stuff like that. Was he kicked off the bench? I believe he was kicked off the bench. But this guy was on the bench, and this is public knowledge. I cite a .org website, which is a tier 1 source. You know that .org and .edu are credible sites. And I cite that for him. And he's like, no, don't read from there. Read from this site. I'm giving you the source for people to look up. Judge Sherwood Bauer in Florida.
Yeah.
Specific case. He had 2 people. And obviously, he's a judge. He oversees these things. So that makes it systemic. He had 2 people with the same score sheet that I just said. They were found guilty of robbery. The black guy got 26 years while the white guy got 2 years. And they had the same score sheet.
That's impossible. Wait, guilty of robbery with the same exact criminal record?
Yes.
Okay, hold on. I actually want to see this. Hold on. Let's go ahead and look it up.
Look it up.
What's his
Matter
name?
of fact,
hold on for a second.
Judge
How do you spell his name?
Sherwood, SHERYWOOD, Bauer, BAUER Jr.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what's the title of like the case? 2 men convicted of robbery.
Where's my book? Oh, hold on.
Where's my book? Okay, let's go ahead and look it up. Are you talking about 2020? Is this what you're talking about? A white armed robbery suspect was sentenced to 2 years in jail. Okay, 2 years in jail. Okay, and then a black armed robbery suspect was sentenced to 26. This is a Facebook post I see. Let's see if I can get an article on this. I see another Facebook post.
No, look up the judge. It's an actual case. Hold on.
I looked up the judge, sir. Okay, let's see what the summary says. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so yeah, you misrepresented the case. So the white guy cooperated with prosecutors against co-defendants, which is always going to give you more leniency when it comes to the state. So Mr. Dr. Leon James, why'd you leave that out, man?
His name is not Dr. Leon James.
Or Dr. Leon, Dr. William, Dr.
Dion.
William Dion James. Sorry, Dion James. And so why'd you leave that out, sir?
That's not being left out. He was found guilty.
I don't think you understand, sir. You can be found guilty of a crime.
I can explain it. You can be
saying. Can you agree? Do you agree that if you cooperate in a case against other co-defendants, that you are likely to get leniency in some sort of way? That's sort of how that's sort of your incentive to cooperate and make sure that the state has everything it needs to convict the other guys, right? It's to what they're going to give you is a lesser sentence, right? They're going to give you leniency.
I get what you're trying to say. You're trying to say that even though he was found guilty, so he cooperated, so that's why his sentence was 13 times less. Is what you're
That's
trying to
always
say.
how that works, sir. Yes.
So are you trying to say, so deathpenalty.org, why is it that a black person is significantly more likely to get the death penalty than a white person, even when you compare apples to apples?
Okay, now you're changing the topic to a different case. We're talking about this
No,
right now.
no,
I can debunk the other things in a second.
So we're still on criminal justice, and he's talking about debunking the stuff, even though we're talking about deathpenalty.org, which references the death penalty cases. And we see, even when you compare everything, socioeconomic status, throughout history, black people have been significantly more likely to get the death penalty, just like men are significantly more likely to get the death penalty per capita than women. This is not something you can run from, and I don't know why people don't just be honest about these things. Like you lose credibility when you can't just be honest. If we look at all of the credible sources, we can look at any source he wants to look at, and this is what it's going to say.
I just want to focus on one thing at a time. So You said apples to apples. Do you agree that if you have two cases where one guy cooperated against other co-defendants and another guy did not cooperate against other co-defendants, that is an explanation for why the sentence and disparities may be different to an extent? Do you agree that that's not apples to apples? One guy cooperating and one guy's not cooperating?
If one is cooperating and the other is not cooperating, and he made a deal with his lawyer that says that he will get less time, then yes.
Okay, that's not apples to apples then.
No, I said if that's the case.
That's what happened. And so do you agree when you said earlier that it's apples to apples, this is not apples to apples at all?
This is apples to apples.
It isn't, because one guy cooperated and the other guy didn't.
He did cooperate. So I kept telling him they both cooperated. You saying that they didn't need Lloyd doesn't mean that he didn't cooperate. So his whole argument, he wanted to focus on this, that they didn't need Lamar Lloyd. They didn't need his testimony. That doesn't mean he didn't cooperate. If he snitched and he says he's cooperating and he's like, I'm going to work with you to get less time. And at the end of the day, the prosecutor's like, hey, well, you cooperated, but we didn't need you. That's not meaning he didn't cooperate. Like, what are you talking about? And they removed it off the table.
And by the way, he pleaded not guilty. He didn't plead guilty, right? He pleaded not
No,
guilty.
I didn't say he pled guilty.
Right, but this is the
Not
issue.
guilty.
He received 2 years in jail due to cooperating with prosecutors against co-defendants. Not a co-defendant, co-defendants. So he basically get locked up several other people working with the state government. Of course, that's going to give him
Both
more
pled no
leniency.
contest to both pled no contest to 2 counts of armed robbery. They went before the same
Okay.
judge in the same courthouse. Each had a single misdemeanor on their record. They tallied the same exact amount of points on the score sheets used to determine criminal punishment.
Okay.
The sentences were not the same. Also, which one you're looking at? Charles Leitner was 19 when he robbed.
By the way, you're reading. By the way, I'm looking at this PolitiFact with the Facebook thing. It's pretty interesting. I know exactly where you're reading this from. It's from Facebook.
I'm not reading it.
But it
from
also
Facebook.
goes on to say that the prosecutor, I'm going to go off with the prosecutor. A prosecutor said that the 2 cases were different because Leitner, I don't know how to say his name correctly, cooperated with prosecutors to convict co-defendants. And so this guy cooperated with the state to convict co-defendants. Of course, that is going to give you leniency. That's always how that works. So when you were trying to say that this was apples to apples, you lied. This was not apples to apples at all.
So we're looking at Judge Sherwood Bauer. So let me read something to you since you're trying to escape Judge Sherwood Bauer. So
by the way, the same article that you're talking about says a Facebook post tries to illustrate that point through a graphic comparing the results of 2 cases.
I'm not reading a Facebook post.
Brother, okay, so are you reading an article that says a white armed robbery suspect was sentenced to 2 years in jail, while a black armed robbery suspect was sentenced to 26 years in prison? Is that what you're reading from?
I'm not reading an article, no.
Okay, because it mentions like the whole thing with the 1 prior misdemeanor. Where are you getting that from? What article? Are you not getting that from politifact.com?
No. Right now I'm looking at the Herald Tribune. That's my source. So look.
Okay, well, it says the same thing anyways.
So listen,
yeah.
Bauer spent his first 3 years on the bench, and just says the Herald Tribune says the same thing. Okeechobee County before moving to a felony court in Martin County in 2008. He has overseen civil cases, substance abuse issues, and mental health matters. He now works in family court in St. Lucie County. Though through it all, Bauer has been harder on blacks, according to the Herald Tribune analysis. That's the source.
Yeah, according to a non-governmental organization that is claiming that. Let me read more, by the way. Let me read more.
More than 1,800 cases heard in his courtroom. An analysis of 1,800 cases, right? A large number of cases, which shows a major impact that one racist judge has had on the community with extreme disproportion in sentencing. You asked how many.
Yeah, but this is the issue. 1,800 cases. Right. So
before he asked me what number, how much, and then he knows this is a real thing, but he just banks on you not knowing. Now, if I didn't have this in my book, this is why my book is important, and I know it's there, but I haven't read this chapter recently. So I end up reading a complete chapter, finding the number 1,800, and now he's going to run away from the 1,800, saying, "Well, I have to read through I have to read through 1,800 cases," which the Herald Tribune, they already did their analysis through the 1,800 cases and found that it was racial disparities. But he doesn't want to. It doesn't fit his narrative, so you're going to ignore it.
This is the issue with people trying to do stuff like that, where they're trying to sort of fearmonger people and hit these buzzwords. 1,800 cases. We don't until I look at the methodological structure of how they did that analyzation. Hold on, until I look at the methodological structure of how they analyze those cases, I can't make a comment on that because there's so many different variables, and you are a doctor. You should know this sort of stuff.
I know about variables.
There are so many different variables you have to account for. But let me read more.
Sample size too.
Let me read more. Thank you. That's great. And MOE. Do you know what MOE is? Hold on. You know about sample size? Hold on, sir. Calm down for a second. Do you know what an MOE is? Since you know about sample sizes, what is an MOE, doctor?
Let's talk about this. You just said before, we don't have a number. Why would he bring up MOE here? like he's bringing up the margin of error. Like that doesn't even. It's not even something necessary here, and he continues to ask questions to try to get you away from the point you're making. Is 1800? And you're talking about apples
What is
and
an MOE?
Listen,
what is an MOE?
listen.
You don't
No,
know.
you're not escaping away from this. If he, in fact, for 1,800 cases of black and white civilians, if he, in fact, disproportionately sentenced black people more harshly than white people, is that systemic racism?
No, it isn't. Because unless I look at the variables, no, it isn't. It's really simple. Because if those black people, can you stop interrupting me for a second? I did hear the question. Just stop interrupting me for a second. Hold on, brother. Calm down. Calm down. Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. The question that you asked, right, was that if in those 1,800 cases involving black and white civilians, if he sentenced black civilians harsher than white civilians, is that evidence of systemic racism? My answer is no, because if those black civilians had harsher criminal records, and depending on the details of those cases, like did they cooperate, did they not cooperate, what deals did they make, what deals did they not make, all sorts of different variables can change. But let me.
So he thinks that makes sense, but that doesn't make sense. Here's why that doesn't make sense. Because if we're taking into account the variables, then he wouldn't be sentencing them more harshly. He would be sentencing them fairly if you're accounting for different variables. If one person robbed 10 people and one person robbed one person, and then the person who robs 10 people, they get 10 years, and then the person who robbed one person gets 1 year. And the person who robbed 10 people just so happened to be black, and the person who robbed one person just happened to be white, that wouldn't be a harsh sentencing. That would be fair sentencing. So this is what I'm talking about with asking the questions. I asked him a question. If he, in fact, harshly sentenced black citizens disproportionately to white citizens, is that systemic racism? And he said no. So this is what I'm talking about with you not understanding the questions and not listening. Like, because I asked the question in a way that, okay, if he in fact did harshly and disproportionately sentence them, then that is systemic racism. So then we could look at it and say, okay, this is in the 21st century. We have someone who clearly, every time you compare apples to apples, they were harshly, disproportionately sentencing black people. That's systemic racism. He starts bringing up, oh, we got to look at the variables. Hey, maybe it's not that. No, the question was, if in fact, and he started saying, calm down. When I told him to repeat the question so that I know that you heard it, I should have said, did you understand it? That's why I have my head in my hand at this point.
Read more about the case that you brought up, like about the judge, just so we can get deeper into this. Here are the basic facts of the two cases, okay? Leg Leitner, right? This is I believe, one of the guys, right? Robbed men in a 2008 drug deal. Lloyd robbed a Pizza Hut and gas station the following year. Both men pleaded no contest.
So Leitner, the white guy, robbed 2 people in a drug deal. So he's selling drugs at the same time. The white guy. The black guy robbed the Pizza Hut. Both are wrong. But it's double the crime when you have drugs. It's drug activity and things like that.
Contested 2 counts of armed robbery and had open pleas, which means they weren't promised a particular sentence. Each had a single misdemeanor on his record and tallied the same point.
He said they both had open pleas, so they weren't promised a particular sentence. Both of them. This is what I'm saying.
Total on score sheets used to determine incarceration time. Based on their score of 138 points, the state's guidelines called for a sentence of just under 7 years to life in prison. Bauer sentenced Lloyd to 26 years in prison in 2010, and the following year sentenced Leg Leitner to about 2 years in jail, including time already served. David Lustgarten, the assistant state attorney who prosecuted Leg Leitner.
When he's saying time served, that's like 2 years served throughout the case of the court. So 2-year sentence is like the guy doing 4 years.
Leitner told PolitiFact that the defendant's total points on the score sheets don't tell the full story. This is the context. Lustgarten, this is the prosecutor, said he was familiar with the facts of Lloyd's case. Legleitner, he said, was one of about half a dozen defendants who were involved in a scheme to approach other men under the guise of buying drugs, but planned to rob him. This is what happened with this other guy, okay? Legleitner helped the prosecution build the case against the co-defendants who were armed, including testifying.
So Leitner's in a scheme with other men to approach people and rob them. Act like a drug dealer and rob people. This is like a RICO type of case that the white guy was involved in. And he got 2 years for the robberies he committed. They both were working out a deal. They both weren't guaranteed an amount of time. One got 2 years and one got 26 because he was just more successful with getting other criminals convicted. And that's because he was an actual criminal. The guy, Lamar Lloyd, who robbed the Pizza Hut, was just robbing the Pizza Hut, was down on his luck, robbed the Pizza Hut. He wasn't involved in drugs and a scheme to act as a drug dealer to rob people. That's a whole RICO case there going on.
Against one at trial. And this is a quote. I told Judge Bauer at sentencing that without his testimony, I would have never secured a conviction against the two bad actors. So the state in this case was like, hey, I wouldn't have been able to score a conviction against these other two bad guys if I did not have this man cooperating with the state. Okay.
He thinks this helps his point, but it hurts his point. All you have is a prosecutor, another person who's a part of the system, who's advocating on behalf of a white civilian or a white criminal and not on the behalf of the black criminal.
Okay. The Herald Tribune article alluded to the fact that Legleitner cooperated when it stated that, quote, the prosecutor lobbied hard for leniency. So the prosecutor was asking for leniency because he was able to get two other convictions because of this guy basically, you know how you say it, snitching, right? And so that's what you want to leave out. And so you want to compare, you want to say that those two cases are apples to apples. You know they aren't apples to apples, Dr. Dion James. You know they aren't apples to apples.
So now it's my turn to speak. Okay, notice I didn't cut you off. So you're trying to run from the fact that this is a racist judge. Bauer handed down, on average, prison terms of 497 days to whites convicted of burglary. He gave blacks with the same exact score sheet triple the amount of time. So we're talking apples to apples, the same score sheet. He gave them triple the amount of time. What do you say to that?
Okay, again, you brought up the specific case, and now you're.
So look, he's trying to say I'm talking about the same judge, and I'm giving more evidence. It's compelling evidence that this judge is a racist and he has systemically racist practices. He's trying to say like, oh, well, you're bringing up one thing and then another. No, it's the same judge. It's on topic. It's just compiling the fact that this guy has bad faith and he's doing poor. He's not doing his job correctly. He's he's systemically racist. He's racist against black criminals, against black people who come into his courtroom. It was found by the Herald Tribune over 1,800 cases. Then I brought up specifically the specific crime, giving them 497. He would give white criminals on average 497 years for days for burglary, and then 3 times the amount of that for black criminals. Then he runs away from that, saying, "Oh, I have to look at this. This is already data. This has already been researched, and I'm giving him the sources."
You're bringing up like this analysis that I haven't read yet. I haven't seen the methodological structure of it. It could very much be flawed. And so until I can comment on something that I've analyzed myself, I won't. But in reference to the case that you originally brought up, until you try to change,
then watch him bring up sources and studies that he hasn't studied himself.
Change the topic. Do you agree that this is not apples to apples? Do you agree? Hold on. In reference to the case that you brought up about the two men with identical score sheets, right? They were both convicted of armed robbery. Do you agree that these cases are not apples to apples because one cooperated and was able to give the state 2 other convictions and the other didn't? One had the prosecutor asking for leniency and the other didn't. Do you agree that it's not apples to apples, like you said?
It is apples to apples.
He's still holding on to it.
People can look it up. You said yourself that the other guy, both of the guys had made a deal. One's worked out better and one's didn't. It still doesn't signify 13 times the amount of time. One got 2 years and one got 26.
Yeah, this guy got two. This guy that we're talking about, the white guy, he was able to give the state 2 other convictions. So when you're trying to say this is apples to apples, you're being disingenuous and you're
It's not
omitting.
disingenuous.
You're omitting. It is disingenuous, right? Either because there's only 2 explanations. Either you knew about these extra details that you happened to leave out and what the prosecutor said, right? Or you were ignorant. Okay. If you were ignorant, you can just admit, okay, I didn't know about this extra. Did you know when you first brought this up about the extra details of what the prosecutor said and the leniency because of the 2 other convictions? Do you know any of this stuff?
Yeah, it's in my book.
It's in your book. Okay, so you brought up all these facts in your book, but you still got to the conclusion that it's apples to apples?
They both pled no contest. They both committed armed robbery. They had the same score sheet. They both tried to work out a deal with the state. You're trying to say right now that one worked out better because he got more people convicted.
A plea deal.
That substantiates him getting 24 less years is what you're saying right now, correct?
Just really quickly, you said both try to work out a deal. What deal did that black guy try to work out with the state?
They both were trying to give up other people.
Really? What's your evidence that the black guy was trying to give up other people?
It says he tried to work with the prosecution.
In terms of what?
What do you mean in terms of what? Of giving up other criminal
activity? I don't read that anywhere.
I just told you when I'm reading my case from the Herald Tribune about all of the stuff that
doesn't say that here.
A year-long Herald Tribune investigation used 2 databases. Oh yeah, here we go again. A year-long Herald Tribune investigation used 2 databases, one compiled by court clerks and the other by the Department of Corrections to find the racial inequalities in criminal sentencing are rampant throughout Florida. Blacks spend more time behind bars than whites who score the same number of points under the state sentencing guidelines. This is systemic racism. Blacks are also more likely to have their civil rights revoked, preventing them from voting and making it harder to find jobs and housing. This is 2016.
That's just a lie. But let's get back to this. The Herald
That's
Tribune
not a
seems to be a left-wing publication.
When the Herald
Hold on
Tribune,
for a second. Hold on for a second.
Oh, no.
Because you're adding in all sorts of different things that are not even a part of this conversation. Sir, calm down for a second. Calm down.
You calm down.
You're adding in a.
So at this point, we're 30 minutes in. We're like 30 minutes in, and he's still trying
bunch
to
of damn. Dude, can you relax for a second?
How does the FBI collect their crime data?
Okay, one, when you first came here, I already answered that question, so I'm not going to repeat myself again. I did. Calm down for a second. I already answered that question. See, now you're interrupting me now again. Actually, so if I got it wrong back then, it's interesting because you would have told me I had it wrong, but you actually didn't correct me or say I got anything wrong. So don't try to change the topic now. Here it is again. He's interrupting me. Calm down. You were wrong about the first thing that you brought up. You said this was apples to apples.
When he interrupts me, it's okay. That's why we need mediators. That's why he posted this and said live debate, but we're not even discussing reparations and things that we were supposed to discuss from the Amanda Seales thing.
Apples. It's not apples to apples at all. You
all right, it's not
lied.
Apples to apples.
You lied. Hold on. And by the way, Lloyd was the black guy. Do you agree? Lloyd was the black guy in this case?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay. Move away from that case because you're trying to hide
Lloyd's case.
See, he wants to play games and waste time. I don't. I want to get to the bigger sample sizes and I want to get to data and sources that show that this is just a real issue today. But when you're playing games and you know you're not telling the truth and you're being disingenuous, which 2 things can be true? We can do both. We can look at the black community and we can look at gangs and we can look at drugs today and the music, the things that I talk about. We could look at ratchet behavior and how people need to conduct themselves. But then you also have to look at the systemic issues, and he doesn't want to look at that.
Was a clear no, because this is the first thing you brought up. Until you get a concession, we're not going to move on from this. Lloyd's was a clear-cut case, said Adam Guzzi, right, who prosecuted Lloyd and recommended a 30-year sentence. Guzzi said he had witness accounts from the Pizza Hut and Sunoco gas station, as well as other witness who had spotted the defendants appearing to inspect another restaurant earlier. Prosecutors didn't need Lloyd's cooperation to convict the other men. That's to convict the other man. That's the difference. Is that the prosecutor did not. So
I've been telling him for I don't know how long. He's saying that they didn't need his Lloyd's, the black guy's testimony or cooperation to convict the other guy. It doesn't change the fact that he's cooperating just like the white guy. I've been telling him, you watch me tell him, like, it worked out for the white guy. He was able to get the conviction through his cooperation, and the black guy wasn't. They both pleaded no contest. They both were found guilty. One guy it just worked out because, again, he has a whole like RICO situation going on with other people portraying to be drug dealers and robbing people. So it worked out for him. And then he's even going to agree that 2 years seems like that's too little amount of a time for the crime he committed. He's going to say that the guy should have got 10 years. He think 10 years would have been more likely. Now, if we were comparing 10 to 26, that's more understandable, but I think everyone can agree based on if you look at these cases that 2 to 26 is ridiculous.
Prosecutors in these cases did not need Lloyd, but they needed Legleitner, whatever his name is. So you're going to still tell me, doctor, that it's apples to apples, correct?
And the crazy thing about it is they may have needed Chase Leitner to convict the other two, or, you know, it could have been helpful, but Leitner was caught. So they didn't need Leitner to convict Leitner. Like, they didn't need his testimony. They didn't need him to snitch on himself. So why would you only get 2 years when it carries 7 years to life? He got less than the minimum.
Hello?
Hold on, I'm looking for what you're reading from.
Yeah, Political Fact. Look up the case on Political Fact. It mentions these things.
Because right now I'm on.
By the way,
Florida
did you hear what
Hold on. Right now I'm on floridacourts.org.
No, go on politicalfact.com.
No, hold on. Florida Courts, Judicial 12, floridacourts.org. And it's saying the article in question compared a number of individual cases where a white and black defendant had been sentenced disproportionately.
Sir, focus. Sir, focus. We're talking about this case.
Criminal history. The only conclusion drawn from these findings by the authors of this article
that's
is
a different
Judge
thing.
Bauer had inappropriately factored race into the sentencing considerations. So you can't get away from this. This is a .org.
I have a slam dunk for you. Ready? Are you ready for the slam dunk?
Source.
Are you ready for the slam dunk?
What?
So, do you know who Lloyd, the black guy in this case, do you know who his attorney was?
Lamar Lloyd, who was his attorney? No.
Okay. J.D. Lewis was Lloyd's defense attorney. Okay. Now, he was asked about the role of race in Lloyd's sentencing. What do you think he said? Like, yeah, race certainly played a factor, because you believe your conclusion is that race certainly played a factor, correct?
That's not just my conclusion.
I'm not asking you what the other left-wing people are saying. Is that your conclusion? I'm talking to you. I'm talking to brother. I'm talking to you.
So again, I'm citing from .org's websites, and I'm telling him the sources, and I'm telling him about the Herald Tribune. Several sources have found that Judge Sherwood Bauer was operating and sentencing both for racial discrimination. So those are not just leftist sources. All right. When I tell you I'm reading from, what was the source I told him I'm reading from? When I tell you I'm reading from equaljusticeinitiative.org, or if I tell you I'm reading from judicial12.floridacourts.org, these are not leftist websites. This is data that has determined through analysis and studies, research, that this judge, even when you compare apples to apples, that he is racially discriminating. Tier 1 sources.
I'm talking to you, right?
Yes.
So,
but according to Tier 1
sources,
okay,
okay. So yeah, perfect. You're saying that race certainly played a factor. Lloyd's defense, brother, please. Lloyd's defense attorney said, quote, "I can't personally say there is evidence that race was a factor." This was what Lloyd's attorney said.
So he has his bombs and stuff dropping. So again, it's on his platform. What does this prove that his lawyer says he doesn't believe race played a factor in the sentencing? What does that prove? We don't know this lawyer specifically. We don't know their ideology. We don't know if they're left wing or right wing. We don't know. So what is the point of saying that? And he said he has like, I got the nail in the coffin. I got the, that doesn't prove anything. If he wasn't a lawyer, the lawyer could have the same ideology as him. And then if he was an attorney, he would say, oh yeah, I don't believe that, race played a factor. That doesn't prove the facts from studies, analysis of court cases, over 1,800 court cases that shows that this judge does this. So, okay.
Lloyd's attorneys say he can't prove that race played a factor. That's what Lloyd's attorney said. And he was his defense attorney.
That doesn't prove anything. You said that to prove
what? He's the defense attorney. You're not the defense attorney. And you guys are reaching two different conclusions. You're definitive about race playing a factor. He can't say there's evidence for it, is what he's saying.
Across a study, an analysis of Judge Sherrod-Bauer's cases, 1,800 cases, they determined.
See how you're changing? I'm not talking about 1,800 cases. I'm talking about these two cases.
No, because the sample size, a large amount is better. So would you agree in research, 1,800 is better?
Yeah,
than
more.
One,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Obviously, I agree. When you're trying to reach a more general thing, I agree. A larger sample size is always better. But this is the thing: the issue with criminal convictions and criminal cases is that there's a lot of nuance and a lot of things that go into it. Like, for example, when you brought up just one example of systemic racism, which was the Judge Bauer case when it came to Lloyd and Legleitner, two white guys, both convicted of robbery, one guy sentenced to 26 years, one guy sentenced to 2 years, with similar.
You said two white guys. He meant one white guy, one black guy.
Score sheets. You omitted a ton of important information in just one case. You want to jump to, hold on. You want to jump to 18.
He said I omitted a ton of information. Watch this.
1,800 cases, when in just this one case, I found like 5 different issues. Okay, one of the issues he didn't mention.
He said he found 5 issues. He's going to name one. Watch this.
I have been naming them, but I'll go ahead and repeat myself again. Please don't interrupt. One of the many issues is the fact that you believe that race definitively played a factor. Lloyd's own defense attorney said he can't find evidence that it played a factor. Another key thing was the fact.
So he's saying I omitted that the lawyer, one key factor that I admitted that contributes to the sentencing is that the lawyer, the black guy's lawyer, said he doesn't believe that race played a factor. That's one thing he's saying that I omitted that is very important to the sentencing, which is not.
The fact that you omitted the fact that Legleitner actually cooperated with the prosecutor. Another thing.
He said I omitted the fact that Leitner cooperated with the prosecutor, which we've already established that they both cooperated with the prosecutor. One was just able to get two other people convicted, and for Lloyd, the black guy, they didn't need his testimony. They didn't need his cooperation. Even though he did cooperate, they didn't need it to get the convictions, is what the prosecutor said. But he's saying I omitted that, and I gave him that one. Now watch him repeat himself for the third one. And he said he had 5, but he was only going to name 3. And this is going to be a repeat. He's going to repeat the same thing.
That you omitted was the fact that the prosecutor in the case, right, said that she was only able to get the conviction of 2 other men because of the help of Legleitner.
So he said that again. So he just said, he already spoke about how Leitner cooperated and he was able to get the sentence because he cooperated. Then he says the prosecutor said she was only able to get the other 2 people because of his cooperation. So he said the same 2 things twice. I want you all to notice what he's doing here. He said he had at least 5. That's 3. He repeated himself twice. And those aren't significant to the case sentencing differences of omission.
Lloyd's case, they didn't need his help at all or make any deal with him or anything like that in order to get a conviction of the other men. And so you omitted all of those things in just one case, yet you're trying to jump to 1,800 other cases with their complexities. That's ridiculous.
You didn't name 5. You named 3, and you named 2 twice. You said, oh, 1 worked, cooperated, and then the prosecutor said, oh, I was able to get 2 other convictions. That's the same thing twice. that he cooperated. Is what you just said it differently.
Yeah, I'm getting more specifics, though. I can get even more specifics if you want. I've mentioned a lot of
If
different
you wanted
things.
to, first of all, they both cooperated. One was just more successful in their cooperation. And that still has nothing to do.
That's not the key issue. The key issue is that the prosecution did not need Lloyd. They needed Leitner to secure a conviction.
Did Lloyd cooperate?
Doesn't say that here, actually.
Cooperate
in what way? When you say cooperate, in what way do you mean cooperate?
Snitch.
You're saying, hey, I'm open to it?
He snitched.
Yeah, but this is the thing, is that there was no deal made with him because they didn't need him.
No, they made a deal. It's just that the deal didn't fall through for him.
No, there was no deal ever made.
Yes, it was. The deal didn't fall through for him. So it's like if the other guy, if Chase Leitner wouldn't have been able to get the other people convicted, then that deal would have fell through.
Okay, really quickly.
But he still would have been sentenced far less than Lamar Lloyd, because Judge Sherwood Bauer is known for doing this.
That's a hypothetical. That's you trying to predict what would have happened if the circumstances had been different. But do you agree that, given the nuance in this case, to say that it is apples to apples would definitely be a little bit disingenuous here?
No,
think about it. Really?
13 times less the amount of time with the same exact score sheet. They both cooperated. Like, what are you talking about?
No, one guy was needed. The other guy wasn't needed. One guy was able to get two other men convicted.
So you're saying that the sentencing was as fair as possible, barring the court cases, is what you're saying?
As fair as possible. I'm not the one doing the sentencing. I'm just more honing in
but
on what you were saying.
Matt.
Yeah, I'm not the one doing the sentencing. Me personally, I would have to look at all the details of the case if I was the judge. I believe both of the men probably should have gotten at least 10 years. I mean, armed robbery, I don't know what the hell he was doing.
Then, thank you.
But nevertheless, hold on for a second. But nevertheless.
So we spent 40 minutes just to get down to the fact that sentencing wasn't as fair as possible, that the white guy could have got at least 10 years for an armed robbery. And I kept telling him, yeah, the other guy, they both cooperated. One was just successful with his cooperation. They both pled no contest, got found guilty, all this other stuff. One is just, they're both working with the prosecutor. If you just so happen to not need the testimony of one of the criminals, if you don't need his cooperation to the magnitude of the other person, doesn't mean he wasn't cooperating. One was successful with cooperating. They're both snitches. Like, it doesn't change the fact that he was cooperating. So this is what is what kills me. You usually know someone is cooperating when they plead no contest to a crime that faces 7 years to life in prison. He's trying to cut a deal. Like, and this is what kills me with this when we're not honest about this. So we spent all this time talking about this case just for him to finally agree that sentencing wasn't as fair as possible, and the white guy, for what he did, should have got more time. So I'm going to stop it here, and then I'll go to part 2.